My name is Nicky Joshi. I'm a visiting faculty at Navrachana University. And as part of our webinar on engineering today, I'll talk about the relevance of engineering in the world today, and also a little bit about the profile of what a modern day engineer would look like. The change is what I see around when I look at the world. And for example, if you look at the way we talk and the way we communicate, way we exchange thoughts and ideas and information, it has changed dramatically over the last 5 to 10 years. And if you look at the way information and knowledge is being exchanged, teaching and learning process, even that has undergone a sea change with the electronic media being so widely used and so readily being. So that has gone through a lot of change, and so has our factories. The assembly lines, the production lines have changed with a lot of automation, a lot of technology coming in. And it's not only that, the way we entertain ourselves has changed. The way we shop, it has changed. The way we eat has changed. The way we travel and commute has changed. So the change is underlying, it's almost everywhere. And so the question becomes very obvious. Drives these changes? What is it that makes these changes possible and sustains these changes? And for me, I think it's engineering and technology. It's right there in the center. It's a very, very significant part of creating these changes, of driving these changes and maintaining these changes. And this tells me engineering is very, very relevant in this modern day and age. And more important is keeping up with engineering and technology. You don't want to be left behind. It's such a fast-paced world where things change almost on a daily basis, and therefore keeping up with technology can at times become challenging. So to drive this point home about how relevant engineering is, I can use this little illustration which goes back over the past 100 years of how the vehicles, the automobile evolved. And what we see up here is maybe something that came from a horse-drawn carriage. The horse went out and got replaced by a little steam engine, and so it was a powered vehicle. And then that changed into a four-wheeled structure with some springs and cushions and shock absorbers to add a little bit of comfort. And then you had this cabin on a four-wheeled vehicle, and then it gradually evolved into what looks like this more super slick. Now, if we look at these images, what strikes us is the kind of engineering that went in from this three-wheeled structure to maybe this car in image number 5. Was a lot of development, a lot of new creation. However, at this stage, probably the engine, the IC engine, which is the heart of the car, kind of matured, and then there was not much change probably in terms of the engine, but then the structure changes, the car looks different. In engineering stagnates, does that mean engineering slows down? Well, I would say engineering just evolves, it just changes, the focus changes. If we look at the modern day vehicles, the more focus, the engagement of engineering is more on the braking systems, the safety features of the car. There's a lot of focus on the cabin inside, making it more comfortable, more connected, the infotainment system as it's. And then you also have a paradigm shift that has been brought in the automotive world by companies like Tesla, who make the electric vehicles. So engineering does not go away. It just changes, it just evolves. Its relevance is always there. And there's another example of the electrical or the power industry. If you look at the power producing plants, thermals and the gas fired and the hydro, these are very mature technologies. So if I wanted to create another, and all I had to do was take a plans from an existing plant and try to replicate with very little change. So these are technologies which are considered to be matured. Now, does that mean engineering stops? Well, it means engineering now diversifies, it changes. And what we are seeing now is a lot of focus on alternative sources of energy, using solar power and wind power and other forms which can replace the fossil fuel. This again proves engineering change the relevance. And if we talk about the IT industry, Internet of Things, a buzzword for the last few years, everybody's wanting a piece of this pie, and industries want that too. So the Internet of Things evolves into the industrial Internet of Things, also known as the IIoT. Now, what does that mean? Somebody working on an IT professional working on the Internet of Things now needs to learn a new language, needs to figure out this new domain of industrial environment, is communicate with PLCs and industrial sensors, an entire new language, right? So engineering has not changed, it has evolved, it has just gone into another medium or one medium overlapping into the other. This just tells us how the profiles of engineers also need to change. You cannot restrict yourself to the only domain that you have specialized in, but you need to start walking outside those boundaries. In fact, those boundaries have now blurred. A lot of overlap of IT with mechanical engineering and IT with electrical and electrical with mechanical. And that's how the profile of the engineer also changes. And talking of profiles, here's what an image can tell you what was maybe about 50 years ago, or not even that, 40 years ago. The image on the right is the insides of a car made by Fiat. It was the Fiat 1100. Also known as, later came to be known as the Premier Padmini, made by Premier Automobiles. Those who have traveled by the yellow-black cabs of Mumbai might find this image familiar. Now, this company was really happy with hiring mechanical and electrical engineers. They could do everything that was needed to put these cars on the road. But today, the car on the right, you can't have just a mechanical and electrical person. You need to have somebody who has a knowledge of mechanical, electronics, IT, product design, the design of the cabin itself, safety. All these factors in to build a vehicle on the roads today. So general awareness of all these supporting areas. If you are a mechanical engineer, having information on or awareness of all these other complementary areas is almost a necessity now. So if I was to give another example of using the IT industry, database management used to be, or probably still is, but it used to be a very big field in itself. You could just be a database manager and you could have enough work for life. But if you look at the industries today, database has just become a small part of this entire industry. And therefore, it tells me that a person who's a computer engineer also needs to have some knowledge and information about the various mechanical components, how industries run and how the industrial sensors communicate and the kind of protocols industrial sensors and devices use and the data acquisition, plus all the other specialized areas of industrial communication. Now, this all starts to fall under the need to know area of a person who was originally known as just a pure IT guy or a pure IT engineer. So that is what it tells me about the evolving profile of an engineer. So if I was to summarize this, what kind of a profile the industry looks for? The first one that pops up to me is interdisciplinary. You cannot restrict yourself to your own domain. You need to start walking beyond those boundaries. Somebody in mechanical needs to know enough about instrumentation and enough about and a programming language to be accepted by the industry today. The ability to think, the industry has become such a fast moving or a fast paced world. The ability to think on your feet, to deliver solutions, to solve problems. And because systems are complex, problem solving will happen only when you have an interdisciplinary awareness. So all these things are mutually interconnected. Really sought after quality in the industry is the ability to think a little differently, right? Break the stereotypes. I think that is something that is super valuable in the industry today. Engineers need to be problem solvers. They need to be creative, curious. Curiosity will lead to a lot of learning. So certainly a very, very valuable quality to have. Need to be flexible and multitaskers. Awareness of which is again interdisciplinary, and empathy. Design is again a huge area that engineers need to develop or focus on in terms of their own development. So how does Navrachana University fit into this ever-changing, fast-paced world out there? Well, there is the interdisciplinary curriculum, which is a requirement at Navrachana University, which enables students from different programs to interact with the other program. So a mechanical engineer being able to learn should he choose to, and similarly the other way around. Socially connected or socially engaged design work is also a big thing at the university, and through special programs like Khoj, this is the students get exposed to the social programs. Experiential learning and the critical thinking, these are all ingrained as a part of the curriculum or the way the subjects are taught. University, there's a very strong industrial connect program which keeps you updated with what the industry is doing, what the industry trends are. And overall, this is called the BTech Advantage at Navrachana University, and it's definitely enabling students to preparing them to hit the ground running, as they say, and hit the universities with the kind of knowledge and skills and the tools that they need. So, if you need more information, always log on to the website of the university, nuvac.in. And thank you for joining us for this webinar, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future.